Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the Southern Outdoorsman Podcast, coming at you from Louisiana today. And I'm excited to say that it's an honor and a privilege for us to be sitting across from a Southern legend right here, Mr. Warren Womack. Warren, how are you?
I'm doing fine. I appreciate y'all coming by.
Yeah, I appreciate you having us. You got an awesome property here. You got an awesome back porch that we're recording on. I don't even know. I think you said it's 80 racks up here above us in the rafters.
Yeah, that's right at 80.
Yeah. So, Jacob, how are you?
I'm doing great. I'm doing awesome. We've been here for probably about, I don't know, almost 4 hours now before even starting the podcast. I've enjoyed every second of it.
Yep.
I have too. I really glad y'all came.
Yeah. Well, Warren, I'm excited. So I think the last time I didn't look up your specific episode, but I think it's been almost 5 years probably since we've had you on the podcast. So it's been a while.
Time flies.
It does, and that's one thing I want to get back on here and kind of talk about, because I think the last time we had you on, you were, I think you just turned 76, or maybe you were 75, and you were still using tree spurs, I think, climbing the trees.
Absolutely.
Mobile hunting, which we're going to talk a bunch about. Talk some, really just a bunch about just deer hunting in general, especially with you being down here in Louisiana and hunting all over the place. And still, you're 80 years old, and you're still hunting mobile using either saddle and lock-on with sticks, climbing sticks, like mobile climbing sticks.
Right. Yeah.
Which is extremely impressive.
Yeah, I retared my spurs about 2 seasons ago. I tried to use them during the late season. I cut out a couple of times, and I said, well, might as well go back to something else. So I never could find a sticks that I liked until the Tethered come out with those one sticks, and I really like those a lot.
It's just fascinating because you're doing that. You're still hunting with your recurve.
Yes, I am.
And you actually were telling us earlier today that I guess I think you said it was yesterday morning, you had a doe come by at 6 yards broadside, and you elected not to shoot her.
Yeah, that's crazy because I've been known as a shooter, if nothing else. Not always hit what I was shooting at, but I'd shoot at them. My buddy Chris Fikes, he told me, if arrows ain't flying, ain't nothing dying. Well, she didn't die yesterday.
She lived for another day to eat some more acorns. So, no, I'm super excited to have you on, Warren. One thing, we've got a lot that I want to talk to you about, and I'm probably one of the first things I want to introduce the audience to. If they haven't heard of you in the past, especially maybe some of the YouTube audience members, maybe coming from other parts of the country that aren't familiar with you, your name, and kind of what you've done for especially the bow hunting community in the Deep South, can you give us a run-through of when did you start bow hunting, and what was it like bow hunting back, again, I think you started, well, actually, I don't know exact date, but what was it like when you first got started bow hunting?
I was ignorant. I didn't know anything. They didn't have any thing to educate yourself with back then. It was 1968, and I just knew I loved to be in the woods. I was always a small game hunter. Come up, they didn't have any deer in the area around where I was at. You just had to drive up to northeast corner of Louisiana or go into Mississippi or somewhere like that. And I was raised since I was 7 years old hunting squirrels, and I thought that was the thing to do until I made my first bow hunt. And I wasn't really prepared for that first bow hunt, but I did shoot a deer that I didn't recover. And that one shot at that one time thrilled me so much that I didn't care if I ever killed another squirrel. I made a decision to learn as much as I could about putting deer inside shooting range with a bow, and I devoted myself to it for 4 years. It was like an apprenticeship program. And it took me 4 years to figure a lot of stuff out, but it wasn't the end of my education. I continued to educate myself, and still at 80 years old, I'm still trying to educate myself.
Just a student of the game.
Student, yes, sir.
Absolutely. Now, also, one thing I've been really interested in asking you this, when you first started deer hunting, did you have any kind of mentor or anybody you looked to for advice, or someone that was already successful as a deer hunter or specifically a bow hunter back then? Not
really. It was. I guess you say I was kind of a pioneer. They had a couple of guys I knew that was bow hunting, but they wasn't hunting that much, and it was just. I was told when I first started bow hunting, when you gun hunt, you count your kills. When you bow hunt, you count your shots. And there was a lot of truth in that. It took a while to learn how, but after 4 years, I figured it out. But you got to think, Bow Hunter magazine, they wasn't available when I first started. Nothing on archery. You had Field and Stream and Sports and Field magazines, and they maybe once a year, each one of them would have some kind of bow hunting article or something like that, and that was all you had. It wasn't no YouTube, it wasn't no Facebook, it wasn't no websites or nothing. No computer. you just had a compass for your navigation. That was it. No maps, no cell phones. I mean, it was totally primitive. I'd be gone for 4 days. My wife wouldn't know if I was come home or not. She'd know I was still alive or not. If something happened, she didn't know where I was at or where to find me or anything. It was an adventure really back in those days.
That's something. It's hard to believe now, especially like our generation, kind of growing up, where that we were definitely, I guess, at an age that when a lot of this technology started coming in, like we were very easy to start using it. Some of the newer technologies, specifically cell phones, digital mapping, always knowing where you're at, not necessarily having to carry a compass with you or anything. Back then, this is something I've always been curious to ask guys like yourself who were hunting well before any of that, specifically mapping technology was available other than paper maps. How did you go about hunting and finding a spot and then remembering how to get back there and where that spot was located at?
Well, my grandfather gave me a compass for my 14th birthday, and he told me, don't go in the woods without it, learn to use it, and believe in it. And I took his word for it, and I did that. So my main navigation was with a compass. Maps, there were no maps. I'd go and walk a place out and then draw my own map of different prominent landmarks, like any kind of roads or creeks or rivers or highlines, pastures, just whatever. I would draw that map up myself, and then from there I would figure out different ways to go in to find the places that I designated as a high percentage hunt.
Oh, that's fascinating. So also, I'm just interested in asking you this as well. What was it like when you were hunting back then? Would you ever go into spots in the dark, as in trying to get into an area in the dark where you couldn't see very well, or were you using some kind of flashlight back then? How did you navigate the woods, especially in like low light conditions?
Well, I just use a map. A flashlight. First, I started off with one of those handheld lanterns and everything where you push the button and all that. Well, that left a lot to be desired. I didn't want to fool with that anymore. And then gradually worked up. And my buddy Lloyd Foreman that I hunted with a lot, he's my number one hunting buddy. Well, he found out about these coon hunter lights, and the battery was as heavy as my stand was, just about. It was just a heavy system. But we would hunt for 4 days at a time, and that battery would last 4 days. We was getting up an hour and a half, 2 hours before daylight, and walking an hour in the dark, and then hunting all day. And then when you come out, if you killed a deer, you had to find it, and you had to take pictures, and later on videos in 91 videos, and you had to field quarter it and you pack it back out. Well, that was a lot of battery time, and those big heavy batteries would actually last a 4-day hunt. Come home and recharge and go. But man, it was heavy. And then when they come out with these LED lights, oh man, I thought I'd died and gone to heaven. The lights you can buy now, and a lot of people are scared of a white light. They think it's better to have a red one or a blue one or something like that. I never had trouble. I want my light as bright as I can get. I want to be able to see briars and stuff, so it won't stick me in the eye when I'm walking, or limbs or whatever. I want to be able to see everything, and I don't find where it scares deer at all. In fact, I think you're better off walking with a light than you are without one. The deer can see you better walking in the dark without a light. They see that light, they don't concentrate on you, they concentrate on that beam of light.
Mm-hmm. Warren, I wanted to ask you a little bit about your upbringing. We were looking at your logbook earlier, and if people don't know this about you, you've kept logs of pretty much all of your hunts since '68, and it's pretty cool to watch you flip through there and see all that. Killed your first deer in '68, and we were talking about how in the past, in the 1960s, 1970s, and earlier, there wasn't a lot of deer in the Southeast, especially where we were at in Alabama. And I think you said it was similar down here, and you grew up small game hunting. What was just the deer hunting culture like when you were really young? Did anybody deer hunt at all? I mean, what was it like back then?
I didn't know any deer hunters. I was 24 years old before I killed my first deer. And it just they didn't have them. It wasn't nowhere. I had to go up way northeast corner of Louisiana maybe, or into Mississippi, but it just wasn't any deer. But when I did find deer and start hunting, I was just a way of life for me. I centered all my time and activities, planned all my events around bow season.
Mm-hmm. Now, the small game hunters and everybody that you grew up around, when the deer started coming back, what was it like when that deer hunting culture, I guess, started to come back? Like, people started to get into it. Did you know a lot of guys that were getting into bow hunting, or were you kind of a lone wolf?
Well, I knew a few guys, several, maybe a dozen that was serious bow hunting and everything, but they just didn't have many people bow hunting until in the 90s and stuff like that. I mean, even through the 80s and all that, you'd have a few people. Most people just waited for the gun season, But I know some really good bow hunters, though. I know several that's really good. And probably 5 of us, I'd be scared to tell you how many of the 5 of us killed during our lifetime of hunting and everything. It shocked people, it really would. But they were really good. They knew how to hunt. They all basically used the same style, mobile approach. Like I say, we was mobile before mobile was cool, Everybody thinks it's a big deal nowadays, but that's all we ever knew. Cover as much ground as you can, scout with an open mind, and hunt the best stuff you find to hunt.
And on that topic of being mobile, and again, y'all were doing it way back then, what was the hunting style that you approached for whitetail hunting back then, as in being mobile? Was it some kind of early climbers? Was it lock-ons? Like, what was even available back then technology-wise for, like, stands, and what did you actually use?
Well, I started off with a ladder stand. That's my first thing, made out of EMT tubing. I was an electrician, so I could bend tubing. And I had a ladder stand, which left a lot to be desired. And then I knew a guy that I like to call his name Donnie Davis. He was a real pioneer in bow hunting in Louisiana. I could tell a lot of good stories about him, his abilities and how good he was and everything. He was a pipe fitter welder by trade, and he designed probably the first lock-on that's ever been made. And I did my version of it after I hunted with his and saw it. I made my own version, but it was a solid model. You couldn't fold it. It was bulky, hard to pack and everything. So after we made several of those, we figured out a way to fold it, make it fold, and then it was still bulky, and then we redesigned it and made it. I ought to have it. I should have brought it in here and showed you, but we got it down to 10 pounds, and we couldn't get any lighter than 10 pounds. And 10 pounds sounds light, but we was hunting an hour and a half, maybe hour and 45 minutes from the vehicle, and the time you go in that far, we hunted. Sometimes, all-day hunt, people think it's sitting and staying all day. We'd make an all-day hunt, maybe 4 different climbs. We'd hunt 2 places in the morning, take a break at dinner, and hunt 2 places in the evening. That's like hunting all day, but you get a different scenery, and it breaks it up and give you a chance to instead of just sitting there staring at one place all day long. We did that. Now I got back. I forgot my channel of thoughts. I got sidetracked, but help me out on that.
No, just like, again, so y'all started building your own stands.
Yeah.
And again, lightest you could get was 10 pounds. So what happened after that?
Well, lock-on limit and lock-on windwalker came out, and I was blown away how light it was. The windwalker was 5.5 pounds, and the limit was 6.5, and it's just unbelievable. They're small. I told y'all a while ago, I bought the windwalker first, and Lloyd, he got the limit, and I got the windwalker, and I was 6'3", and I had too tall for the frame to use it, so we swapped. I took his limit, and he took my windwalker, and we was both happy.
And see, what's funny is, for people that don't know about those stands, I bought a limit probably 5-6 years ago. Now, I think it was after either I had heard you talk about one, or I had some other guys that grew up in that, I guess, time frame of when those stands really were coming out. And the limit is a small stand, and I bought a windwalker as well. And the windwalker, and I'm only 5'9", it is a little tiny platform and a little tiny seat, but it folds up and it's super, super lightweight. That's what I was going to say is, like, you're a tall guy. Yeah. I know Lloyd's a real tall guy as well.
He's about 5'10".
Oh, okay. Well, it's taller than me, so that's tall to me. But again, to be able to, like, hunt out those little stands is just amazing. And that's one thing I always go back to, thinking about some old school guys like you and Lloyd, is how small y'all liked your stands. And was that more so for a maneuverability or a lightweight standpoint, or you just never felt like you needed a much bigger platform when bigger stands came to the market?
It was all about weight. You can adjust to anything, but the weight is so important. Like I say, those long distance pack outs, we're not only packing the deer quartered up, but we've got our stand and our spurs and everything we walked in with. We don't leave nothing in the woods. We don't. Every time my stand is usually in one of several places, either in my truck, on my back, in a tree with me sitting on it. When I climb up, it goes up with me. When I climb down, it comes down with me. I don't want to leave a stand in a tree and then come back to it and might have missed a chance of hunting somewhere else. You know, as far as having a bunch of stands and leaving them here, there, and there, I don't want to keep up with all that. I mean, all the person needs one good stand that he's got confidence in, and it works for him.
And by the way, back then, and even up until a few years ago, you were using climbing spurs. Some people call them hooks to climb up and down trees. Again, think about what a lineman uses in order to climb power poles. And you've got a set here. And tell us a little bit about this set. When did you get these? And kind of show them for the camera here. Hold them up real quick, and then let's. So those are the climbing spurs right there.
Yep, they I started in '73 when I started using a lock-on stand. '73, that's when it was, and it's just great. I mean, it's so quick, safe when you make it safe. You know, with the safety equipment and everything. Cut out every once in a while, but not much. It's a quick learning curve to it. It's not a big, long learning curve, and you just take short steps. And it's not like you're trying to take a step as long as you can each time. You just take like 4 to 6 inch steps, and you just quickly go up a tree. You know, and it's fast, it's compact. I can strap that on the back of my limit. And these are tree spikes. They got tree spikes and they got pole spikes. The only difference is the length. You know, the length of a pole spike is like this, and you can see how long these are right here. See if I can get this off here. You see how long that is? Well, a pole spike's probably about this long, about half that long. But the only difference in them is they're only going to penetrate the tree so far. You know, the long spikes are not going to go any deeper in the tree than the short spikes. But this helps you with limbs and vines and irregular shaped trees and everything. And plus, these are aluminum. I was gifted these from a friend that I did a favor for. And I've been having them since 1980, I believe. And I just retired them 2 years ago. I cut out a couple times trying to climb a tree, and I figured, well, it's time to get some sticks, you know.
So you were still doing it using climbing spikes, tree spurs, hooks, different names for them, up until about 78 years old.
78 years old. I said, well, that's enough. I think my wife, of course, she don't realize, you know, that stuff either.
Yeah. If Miss Jenny knew what you were doing, probably
Saw you running up a tree like a big raccoon.
Yeah. But I got a tree right there. The storm knocked the top out of it, fell on the house and everything. But I got a tree right there. Every September, I would drill it and put boats in it, and every evening I'd climb up there with 24 arrows, have my stand with me, just like a hunt, just like you practicing a hunt. I'd climb up there and hang my stand, get in it, and I had targets scattered all over the place, anywhere from 3 yards to 25 yards, and I'd shoot all them arrows and climb down. And pick them up and go back, and I make about 3 rounds like that. Well, that was doing several things for me. One thing, it was helping my conditioning. That's what you do when you hunt out of a tree, you climb. And all that climbing got me physically prepared to climb. Not only that, but you hadn't been in a tree for 8, 9 months. And when you first get in it, you feel a little unsafe. It takes you a while, about a week of hunting, to get back where you're confident with yourself that you're not going to fall. And then another thing is practice shooting out elevated instead of on the ground. It makes a lot of difference. So I did that. That was my September season right there, getting ready. And then once you start hunting the first week of October, it's like you've been hunting out of a tree for a month, you know, because you've been practicing that. You don't have no turnover or flip over, just waiting to get where you're used to it.
When we were looking through your logbook earlier, if I remember right, October is your deadliest month. You've kept track of when you've killed all these deer. In October, it's a big number, how many deer you've shot in October, which is before the rut in most of the places you hunt, I'm assuming. What was always your go-to for hunting deer? I mean, as far as just getting on deer in October and trying to stay on them.
Making multiple day hunts in a row. Like I used to do my best making like 4 hunts in a row. Plus daily in-season scouting, finding what's hot and what's not. And it changes rapidly. It goes from one thing to another. quicker than anybody realizes. You go hunt a place one week and best thing in the world, go back the next week hoping to hunt it, and they done moved on to something that's better. Those deer, they're real picky about what they eat, and they want to eat the very best of a food source that's available. And acorns are my favorite to hunt. And they'll have an acorn tree that they all have, the deer have selected as the primary tree for the whole area, and that's the one they come into first. And then as it fades out, another tree takes its place as the most primary, and they're going to navigate and move over to it, and then hunt it until it's ready. Well, by in-season daily scouting, you're finding what's the best at that time you're in the woods. I spent a lot of time walking. Every morning I'd take a stand on places I'd scouted before for about 3 hours in the morning. I'd get down and I'd walk 2 to 4 hours looking for the very best thing I could find with an open mind, and then go back and hunt it, and then change the next day. The next day just keep flipping, flopping.
You're just nomadic hunter. You're always moving around, just always trying to find the best thing.
Pure mobile.
Pure mobile. I like that. That's a good term right there. Pure mobile.
And it's not really difficult. I've had guys that I've took and showed what I do, and they can learn in a couple of trips where it took me 4 or 5 years. I said I had an apprenticeship program of 4 years of doing it. And a couple of outings in the woods, they looking to see what I'm looking for, what I'm expecting to see and find, and it's just right, So it's a quick, and that's all about education, When I started, there was no education. You had to figure all that out on your own.
What do you think is one of the biggest, problems when you've taken guys out in the woods like this and showed them some of the sign? What do you think is like one of the biggest hurdles for someone to overcome when they're trying to hunt feed trees? Like maybe isolating how hot is certain sign and knowing what's the right tree. Like, what do you think some of the issues people may have when trying to hunt that way?
I think it's too easy to satisfy. They find a little sign and they think they're going to do it, but they don't find the maximum sign. I tell you, when you find a really hot tree that's ready, it's an active tree. You got an acre drain, and you stand there for a minute, you're going to hear 4 or 5 acres drop, hitting them limbs and coming down, making noise. A deer hear that pulls them in. You're going to have coons in that tree. You're going to have blue jays squawking there, knocking acorns out. You're going to have squirrels cutting. It's got a real active tree. And when you find that and the ground's all tore up around there, you look at the drip line on the tree. That drip line is like that. Everything inside that irregular drip line, depending on how them limbs go out, it's going to be tore up. And you stand at the edge and you look inside the drip line, and then you look outside the drip line, it's a total different look. I mean, you can, without a doubt, it's like, it hits you in the face. It says, this is it. You get excited. It's a tree that you can't walk off from. You got to climb it. And if you got your stand with you right then, you're ahead of the game because you don't have to go back and get it. You just climb right there. That's another part of the mobile stuff. I always scouted with my stand and my hooks ready to climb as soon as I found it. But you got to have big areas, like big public land, to do this. You can't have 100 acres or 50 acres like that. You just don't have enough food sources, and your deer too much pressure on the deer.
I like how you said earlier too, you got to keep an open mind. You've actually got in your book, another thing you had in there was what kind of trees you've killed or what features you've killed deer on. And you had all the different oak species. I've killed this many on white oaks, water oaks, red oaks. You had another one in there. I think it was called areas.
Yeah.
What was that?
That's like a flow area. Deer they have trails, funnels, and I call them flow areas. A flow area is like an area that the deer use to travel concealed. They take advantage of thickness of woods. They take advantage of elevations, dips, drainages, all that, and they find a way through years of practice, and them does bring them fawns through there, and then those fawns growing up bringing their, and it's what it is, the way they feel they can walk through an area, taking advantage of any kind of cover, no matter what it is, and go from point A to point B. You find a flow area where they just flowing through the woods using that cover, you got a gold mine. And it's going to be the same every year until something happens to change what's drawing them to it.
Was that the one that you have killed the most deer on, I think, when I was looking at the book?
Probably so, yeah.
It had, again, quite a few deer listed right there under that. So the flow area, I'm curious about that and how it differs from a feed tree. You're talking about with the feed trees, you're just going and trying to find the hottest sign no matter what. What about the flow area? How does that differ?
Well, when you get a hot feed tree, in the flow area. See, I had a place I was hunting. They had a river, and then they had a drainage creek, and there was about 200 yards between them, and it had curves in the drainage creek, and it necked down to 200 yards. That's a big flow area right there, or funnel. But they had an oak tree that was getting right. It wasn't right yet, but it's getting right. But all those deer coming through that flow area were drawn to that tree to check on it. Boy, I killed a nice 8-point on that one time. I was scouting, I found that tree, and like I said, it was actually a flow area and a funnel area combined. I climbed on that thing, and I had two big bucks come in. Well, I could read the story. I got the story writ, the perfect example of it. But a doe come in, a spike come in, and then another buck come in, and they got in a cane thicket, and a big buck come, and they laid down, and the one I killed was at 20 yards, and the big buck, he was about 5 yards behind him. I didn't have a shot at him, and I didn't want to shoot the other one laying down. So I was up with my bow up, ready to shoot and everything. And all of a sudden, that big buck, he might have seen me something. He stood up and walked off, turned and walked straight away from him. Well, the smaller buck, which is the one I killed, he got to looking around, and he figured he better get up too. No, he didn't. He turned his head. That's what it was. His head was kind of looking my way, and he turned his head to look at that big buck walking off. And I had a shot at what he's laying on his belly. I shot behind the shoulder, 25 yards, and I shot, and I 10-pointed him more, just right there. Jumped up and run off. But that oak tree is the most important thing. It was sitting right in that travel area. And that's what was drawing them off of the travel area, big wide travel area, into that one pinpoint spot.
Do you have any other what other examples of flow areas do you have? Because you brought this up again like 4 or 5 years ago when you were on the podcast, and I've thought more and more about the term flow area. It's just like a really wide funnel. Like it's just a certain area, like these deer are kind of coming through, and then they're kind of spreading back out at that point. Like you said, it may be 200 yards wide or however it lays out. But what other examples do you have of different layouts of flow areas?
Just the thickness in the ditches and lower elevations and stuff. They like to hide when they travel from point A to point B, and they just naturally know when they're protected, seems like, and they just use that cover, that thick cover, and the elevation changes and stuff to hide themselves coming through. But it'll work for years and years and years, as long as no logging's done or something, fires or something happened to change it from what they're attracted to.
Yeah, there's an area where you hunted in Alabama that sets up a lot like that kind of flow area, and it's through some pines. It's got a couple different drainages kind of connecting up through these pines, and it's one of these areas that you always have does there early season, but come around rut, it will go from like 0 buck sign to the most amount of buck sign you've ever found. And it's this 150-yard stretch through these pines where they're coming up out of one section, they're cutting across this section, dropping down into another kind of thick area.
Right.
And it's one of those areas I've hunted once or twice, seen some deer, but we've got a camera there. I'm really interested in kind of seeing how to hunt that.
Yeah.
And one thing that I'm always curious with, especially kind of talking about you and your hunting style and kind of what you've done, has trail cameras ever, like when trail cameras first came out, do you remember when the first trail camera came out? And did you ever implement trail cameras really at all when you were hunting all the public land, bouncing around?
No, not at all on public land. I did on private places and neighborhood places and stuff like that. My main method for a trail camera, I never hunted corn at all until 2004 when we moved up here. And I got where I didn't have the wheels and the legs and the health to track those hours and hours of walking. I just couldn't do it anymore. And if you're going to bow hunt, you got to have something to pull them in, And I hunt small places now, so I started using corn. But I got off track again.
But you didn't really use trail cameras?
No. I put a feeder up. I got one back there. I got a feeder running back there, and I got a trail camera on it. But that's just to identify what I have in my area to hunt. It's just kind of a catalog deal. See what I got, what kind of bucks I got, and this, that, and the other.
Well, that'd be exciting because I'll be honest, our audio listeners really don't care about trail cameras. The video listeners, some of them out there, they hate trail cameras for some reason. Not a lot of them. There's a couple of them, though, that keep commenting. So it's good to kind of hear, again, that wasn't ever anything you ever really implemented on public land, and it was just woodsmanship. It was, again, learning to lay the land, reading sign, and setting up accordingly.
Old school.
Yeah, and developing over the years, one thing, we have a lot of newer hunters that listen to the podcast, and they've maybe been hunting for, let's just say, between 1 and 6 years, and I've talked to a lot of them at trade shows and stuff, and they might be unhappy. Maybe they've killed a deer, maybe they kill like one deer a year, and they're wondering why they're not doing better. I'm like, I think you're doing really good killing a deer a year when you first start. And we were again looking at your journal, and it was interesting because you had how many deer you killed by season, and I think I just briefly looked, so I might be off, but I think you killed your first in 1968, and then I think you killed your second in, I think it said 1970.
That's probably right. Yeah.
So,
like I said, I had that 4-year apprenticeship program.
Mm-hmm.
I think I killed one season, and it's all wrote down in there. But I went from 4 on my 4th year to 9 in my 5th year.
Yep.
That's when I got a. Well, no, let's see. I don't remember.
Well, it started ramping up. You can see it in the journal where it ramps up, and by year 10, you're shooting a lot of deer every season. And I'm just curious about when you very first started deer hunting and you were trying to go and find the deer and you didn't understand the feed trees and stuff like you did now. Do you remember some of those early, just kind of knuckleheaded things that you maybe did and had to overcome?
No. No, I don't. That's a long time ago, Andrew. A long time ago. Like I said, just spent a lot of time in the woods. I would do it during the summertime. Deer hunting was on my mind all the time, I can't lie. I'm not as interested in it as I once was, that's for sure. I've been there and done that hundreds of times, But I would get topo maps of the areas I hunted on national forest land and wildlife management areas, big places. And I would study that topo during the week, and I was looking for certain things. And then on Saturday, I would actually drive up there and bail off in there to go check it. And I wasn't looking for sign in the middle of summer. I was looking for potential places for them. I'm looking for oak trees. I'm looking for flow areas. Just anything I could find that would open mind that'll work, And then once hunting season starts, I've got a lot of ground I've covered. I'm not interested as much in what I found to hunt as I am knowing what not to hunt. And it's just a way of doing it. That's what I did. I worked at it like that.
Mm-hmm. What pieces of advice do you have for people, and maybe, of course, to us as well, of how to cull areas? Again, like X areas off that aren't worth your time.
I personally think 75% of any given track is cull. And you got that 25% that you want to concentrate on. You just got to figure it out.
It comes with walking the place, right?
Yep, wear them boots out.
Yep. And that's a common factor of a lot of the woodsmen that we talk to, which obviously you're one of them. And it just comes from time in the woods. Like there's just no other... There's no substitute. You have to go out there and spend a lot of time in the woods to develop that, right?
And you gotta look for stuff. You just can't just walk around. My son, he was turkey hunting with me one time, and I kept pointing out stuff that I was seeing, and he was walking with his head down, looking where he was walking, And I said, well, I'm looking. I said, I memorized the ground to the next obstacle I got to worry about. And I'm looking the whole time I'm walking, and I said, well, I'll be getting close to that limb, a log or something, and I see it, and I step over it, and then I scan the next whatever feet till another obstacle, and I'm looking all the time. I was pointing out this to him and that to him, and he said, how you seeing all that? I said, well, look, just don't watch your feet when you walk and everything. So that was a little lesson for him.
Back to the coal area, and I'm not trying to make this about me, but I have found a spot that is like what you're talking about, that little 25% of an area I've never been to. I've hunted around there, never found a lot of early season sign, and we happened to go in there when we were scouting and found the spot. Tons of buck sign, feed sign, trees starting to drop. It was really interesting that you brought that up, and that's a really interesting point, I think, for listeners as well and the viewers out there. It takes boots on the ground, and for you to have the we've said tenacity on the podcast quite a bit in the past, but you have to have the focus to stay out there and keep walking, and always have that thought process of let me go check that spot, and not just turn back to the truck if you still have daylight to look, because you never know when you might find that one area where you'll walk through an area, very little deer sign, and then you get to that pocket that all those deer want to spend their time in, especially around some of the feed trees of those flow areas.
Yeah, and like I said, they're continually changing. Hunting in October is just totally different from hunting in November, and December is totally different from November, And December is different from November, and January is different. Everything starts shutting down in January. I find it really hard.
And one thing you mentioned earlier on in this interview, but also we were talking about this earlier today about stringing hunts together in order to have success. And we've had some listeners write in some Q&A questions in the past about that same question. You know, whether they should take off if they only have a week to take off during hunting season and they're just hunting the weekends already. Should they take off, 3 or 4 Fridays in a row and have a couple long weekends back to back, or should they just do 1 week? Can you talk a little bit more about stringing hunts together and the value of staying in the woods and learning an area throughout 1 week to figure out how to hunt?
Definitely, it's just all the attention you give to it. It just works. You got to put your time in. It's what it takes. Boot leather, rubber boot leather, or whatever. You got to put your time in, and it pays off.
How do you walk us through how you would string hunts together in the past and how you're learning every single day how to, if you don't find something day 1, how are you working through day 2, day 3 in order to set yourself up for a successful hunt?
Well, I don't hunt like this now, but when I was in my prime and doing the best I could, I would start off say I was going to hunt Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. Or I'd get up there breaking day on Monday. And I wouldn't worry about taking a stand. I'd walk 2 to 4 hours, and I might find 3 places to hunt. Well, I'm going to pick out the one that's best for the wind. It's best for where I think the deer's coming from. It's just the most sign. And I'm going to hunt it that evening. And then I'm going to go back the next morning and give it a morning shot if I don't do any good. And I'm finished with it. I'm done with it. And then I'm going to go hunt the next best place I thought for the wind and all that. But no, I take that back. I'm going to go scouting after that second day. I'm going to walk another 2 to 4 hours in a different area trying to find something. And if I find something, I'll hunt it. But I might have found 3 places. I might, instead of making a morning hunt there, I might go make an evening hunt. And then a lot of my scouting is with my stand and climbing method on my back. And I got my field quartering bag, and I had no Alice pack. I used field quartering. Still got it, still use it. And I have it with me and on, and so I got everything I need to do to find a deer, set up on him right, get a shot, kill him, locate him, quarter him out, and pack him out with no outside help. I'm independent from any outside help. If I can do all that by myself, that's my proudest moment. Find something where I never hunted before, do all of that, walking and finding, setting up, and that means a lot right there.
That's interesting, talking about how you're scouting, you're hunting an area, your best area you found that's based off the wind. If it doesn't pay off, you're going back, you're scouting it again, walking, finding the next best area, and then you kind of doing that every single day. And I'll say this about myself, and I'm sure maybe other people can relate. I think there's a point during, like, once season comes in, you almost just want to be in a tree. It's like the scouting aspects. A lot of people, and I've had this happen to me in the past, especially when I was telling you about my old job and how much I had to work in the past when we were having lunch earlier. And if I had a day off, I was going to try to be in a tree. And, because I might only have 1 day every 13 days to go hunt. For someone like that, it makes it extremely tough to try to figure out that pattern because it's changing so quickly, especially as you're getting into the fall, and try to have success. But when you're talking about stringing these hunts together, the biggest thing I'm realizing, having this conversation, us talking earlier, is just how much boots on the ground you're spending out there and constantly learning as these deer are constantly shifting where you can find them and how to set up on them with the hottest sign possible at that moment in time.
Right. And a lot of times by myself, you don't have anybody to meet with or go back and check on or help them do something. You're just totally a solo bow hunter. And I go in the woods all day, pack me a lunch, and I might make a morning hunt, get down and walk 2 or 4 hours, then eat my little sandwich or what that I brought with me, and then go hunt another tree that I knew about, and I stay up there about 2 hours and get down and then go hunt a last light hunt. So I'm traveling, but I'm mobile, and I don't need to go back to the truck for anything. I can just go ahead and hunt and move around like that.
Speak about moving around, and one thing I always think of is, you see guys on public land do this, but I see this a lot in hunting clubs where, a lot of guys in the club, they'll go out, they'll hunt the morning, they're going to come back, they're going to go grab breakfast or a lunch, and then go back out hunt in the afternoon. You were telling us a story earlier, and I want you to tell the story again. Your big buck you've got over here hanging up behind me and Andrew, that you had access on a hunting club. and kind of helped them out with some stuff, and you were able to go in there and kill some deer. Can you tell us a little bit about that, just that whole story of how you got access to it, but again, how you ended up having a lot of success when a lot of the guys in the club weren't having success killing deer there?
Yeah, I had a friend was in the club, and they was trying to raise some extra money for food plots and stuff, and he offered me a chance to, or they were selling 10-day hunts for $300 a tag, and you get to hunt 10 days, not necessarily in order, and then you get morning hunts, and if you made a morning hunt here, you could even hunt the next time. That counted just one day. You know, you could spread it out pretty good. When I went in there, I gave him $300, and I went in there and I killed some deer and turkeys. I spread it out through a turkey season too, but I killed probably my best ever. In fact, I know it's my best ever deer on that place during that time, and it's a 12-point because he had split brow tines, heavy deer, and I wanted to field quart him and just bring the head and meat back to the camp, but the guy that I bought the ticket from, he wanted me to bring it to the camp, hang it up, and skin it there, and kind of show it off a little bit. But we was back at the camp, and one of the members come up to me and he asked me, he said, how you come in here and you first hunt 1 or 2 days, and then you wind up killing the biggest buck we've killed hunting here 20 years? And I said, well, y'all made it easy for me. And he said, what do you mean? I said, well, see that map over there with all your stands marked on it? He said, yeah. I said, I just hunted where you didn't have a stand. And he kind of, I mean, it was almost smart ass, but it really wasn't, you know, it was true.
Well, that kind of goes back to the hunting pressure. So where did you learn that at, I guess, what point of your hunting, I would say, career, of kind of staying away from where that pressure is and trying to find those pockets of where those deer feel the most comfortable?
I think it's just, I'm not very smart, but I think it's just common sense, you know. People in deer areas create pressure no matter where they at or how much they go or don't go. So I was just looking for a place nobody had been.
Do you take that same approach on the public land when you were hunting public land a lot? Like if you started finding a lot of people sign at certain points of the season, you would kind of shift back into the different areas?
Yeah, if I see a car, I go the other way, or parked or something other. Yeah, that's why I hunted so much long distance hunts. You know, where you have to walk an hour to get to it, and walk an hour to pack out too. And packing out gets tough, but you could do it.
Now, on the same topic of hunting pressure, how did you take your own hunting pressure into account when you're hunting areas? Because it sounds like you're so mobile, you're never hunting the same area very much. So
I'm not.
Is that something you see as a big advantage for you?
Yeah, it was very unusual for me to hunt the same place twice. I'd go in there when I think it was the very best. And then if I killed, I definitely wasn't coming back. If I didn't kill and I saw something, I might go back. But if I didn't see anything and didn't kill nothing, I wasn't going back. I knew I could find something better.
So it's almost pretty much every place you went, it was the first time being in there outside of scouting it. Yeah. It was your first real sit every single time you sat down.
And I hunted places that was really hard to get to. You had to really want to be there to do the effort it took to get there too. Most bow hunters or hunters in general, they like the easy way out, you know. I know that's changed a lot in the last 10 years with all the education and people talking about how they hunt and everything. They pick up a lot of stuff, but it's just common sense.
Let me ask you, because you spent so much time in the field. I ask guys this every now and then, but do you have any close calls with any snake stories or pig stories?
Yeah, snakes. Yeah, I was fronting with a friend of mine in the national forest up there, and we was turkey hunting, and we didn't hear a turkey call. We were just gonna set up and call. And I sat down at a tree, and he sat over there. And I didn't like where I was at. And I got up, and I saw another place about 6-7 steps. It was going to give me a better angle. And I got up, and I made 3 steps, and I stepped up on a coiled-up rattlesnake. I mean, stepped right on, like stepping on a water hose or something like that. And he, like, and I jumped straight up in the air. But when you jump straight up, you come straight down. And I bounced off to the side the next time, and then went ahead and killed him. But, yeah, that was a close call. I've had some close calls now.
I bet. I'm like, when we drove down here, I'm like, this seems like not only like some good turkey habitat down here, but I feel like there's a lot of rattlesnakes laying around.
I've killed 12 on our place right here.
Okay, that's something I always bring this up, or I brought this up a couple times in the past, but I've met individuals, and maybe you have too, that one reason they don't bow hunt is they are absolutely terrified of snakes.
Oh yeah.
Do you? I mean, I've kind of just come to the point. It is what it is. I just don't even look for them. Like they'll let me know if they're there, and it just kind of it is.
It's something I deal with when I have to.
Yeah.
And if you had to walk from here to that building over there, scared of snakes, it'd take you 10 times as long as it takes me to just walk to it. I ain't got time for all that. I like to move fast when I'm in the woods to get where I'm going. Or used to. I'm pretty slow right now.
Yeah, but you're still getting around. You're still hanging and hunting and staying mobile. So that's interesting. The now, kind of going back to the hunting, the woodsmanship, the sign reading. Did you ever pay attention? Like, October was always a big time that you're hunting, feed trees specifically, and maybe some of those flow areas. As you're starting to get into November, December, I don't know when the rut necessarily has been on, especially some of the public you used to hunt. But how did you focus or pay attention to buck sign and just overall deer sign from tracks, trails to potentially set up on deer to be able to have opportunities?
I've never been a big buck killer or want to kill. I figured out a long time ago I'd rather kill 10 regular deer in a year's season than one monster every 10 years. So I like to kill deer. I like to hunt deer, and I like to. And those are hard to kill too. Sometimes they're pretty sharp and everything. But I believe I got sidetracked.
Did you read? How do you read buck sign though? Like around, are you hunting feed trees majority of the season, or do you ever transition to a different type of feature?
On your bucks, I'm not worried about those bucks, but what's going to attract those bucks?
Does.
Does. You hunt where the does. I just hunt deer. And if I see does, I have a better chance of seeing bucks during the rut than I do the other time. And, people overrate that rut too. Those deer are more active in the dark during the rut or not rut, than they are in the daytime. They don't just go slap dab crazy. Not the ones I'm hunting anyway.
Did you ever, especially in the talking in the past now, not necessarily now, did you ever focus at all on areas that deer would use for bedding cover or like where they'd spend most time?
Down here where I hunt, they can bed anywhere. They really can. When I hunt a feed tree, I try to get a tree downwind of the feed tree within 15 yards. I shoot a recurve, so all my shots are close. And I gotta get them close. And I don't worry about what's coming from behind me because they ain't gonna come anyway. And hopefully they'll come from somewhere else. You hunt great big wide hardwood bottoms and stuff like that. They could be anywhere.
What is your most memorable hunt? Whether it was a kill or maybe one that got away?
Oh, I had a big one get away. I mean, real big. I'd killed a deer there a week before, and what it was is big cutover place, and then open woods, and I was hunting probably about 30 yards off of the cutover, and watching trails and stuff where they were traveling, and I was shooting a compound bow in and everything, and I've been sitting there looking at cutover for 3 hours, and all of a sudden I seen a barrel out there laying horizontal. I said, "What's that dang barrel doing right there?" And so I got to looking, and all of a sudden the head picked up and did like that. Take all these horns and put them together, and it's about what he looked like. He was a monster. I guarantee you, a monster. I said, "Oh," and I watched him, and he looked around a little bit, and he stood up, and he looked even more impressive standing up. And he turned and started walking down the same trail I'd killed one on the week before that. And I said, I know how far he is. I'm fixing to kill him. I said, best lifetime buck right here. And he come in and he got right, and I drew and I anchored. In the last minute, I checked my sight pin, and I shot him to be closer than he was, and I shot it right over the top of him. No, I shot the opposite way. I shot him further than he was. He was 25, and I thought he was 35, and I shot right over the top. He wheeled back and never saw him again. I mean, a teetotal monster.
Is that one of those hunts that every now and then comes back to your mind? You might be laying in bed or something, and it comes back to you?
It bothered me for a while, but I mean, that's years ago, so that's all forgotten now. But I think that my most memorable hunts were hunting with Lloyd. I've enjoyed his company so much. He's so dependable, and he's always ready. He don't have any excuses, and you can depend on him. He's helped me so much. I stuck a gaff in my ankle one time. We was an hour's walk from the truck, and I put my spurs on too quick. It was getting close to dark, and I had to get up a tree. I was hunting some trails going to a bean field. And I never could find one that was running just right for the wind. And I said, I'm gonna make this one do. So I never walked with my spurs on. So I put them on. I went to climb, and I looked over and I seen a nut. And I said, well, I might get a little wind advantage out of it. So I walked over to it, and I didn't like it. And then I walked too many times. You know how you toe or catch something when you take a step and it makes you go forward? Well, I went up in the air. When I come down, that right gaff stuck in that ankle and fractured my ankle. And I went ahead and climbed the tree, and I shot at a doe at 40 yards that evening. And when I got ready to get out and come down, I was so glad I missed that doe. It was unbelievable, just because I couldn't walk. So anyway, I got down, and I still thought I could hunt the next day. We were sleeping in our trucks, so I went back. I stashed all my gear except for my bow and my video camera, and I met Lloyd, and we walked out and spent the night in the truck. But that thing started throbbing during the night and all that. And I woke Lloyd up an hour early when we normally get up. And I said, Lloyd, I hate to ask you, but would you go get my stand and Alice pack and all my stuff for me? Sure. Went right there, walked a mile in there, walked a mile back out, give me my stuff. And he walked a mile back in there for his hunt and everything. I mean, that's just one of the few things that he done, many things that he done for me. But he was very dependable, very, very good, just a great hunting buddy.
That's one of those things that you can't put a price tag on. It's a good hunting buddy.
And we got so many memories together. The kills he made, the kills I made, the kills we made together on the same trips. We used to walk out with a full Alice pack and a smile on our face singing, Mighty Big Men.
Yeah, that's another thing that we get a lot of messages about. Or people are like, man, how do you find somebody like that? How do you find that hunting buddy? How did you and Lloyd get hooked up together?
I met him on a job, a nuclear power plant they was building in the Baton Rouge area. And he was a pipe fitter, a Boilermaker welder, and I was an electrician. And he had a working buddy that knew me, and he brought Lloyd over and introduced him to me. And I got to talking to him, and we had a lot in common. And went before turkey season and called up a turkey, used a leaf off a tree to call a turkey up. I said, that's my kind of man right there, And we started hunting right there. Lloyd had bow hunted some. He killed a lot of deer. He was a good woodsman. When he was 7 years old, he was dragging a shotgun across a railroad trestle. It went over a big river that was probably 300 yards. He had to walk on that trestle over the river to go down in a big swamp killing squirrels by himself. I mean, he just born and raised in the woods, basically. And but we hit it all real good and wound up hunting. But he killed a few deer with a bow, but not that many. But when we turkey hunted a little bit together, he showed me some places to turkey hunt, which was really nice. But we got together, and he got him interested in bow hunting again. So he bought him a bow, and he built a stand like I got, and he got him some spurs, and he was outfitted, man. He told me, he said, we're going to kill some deer this year. Well, I had a really good place to hunt. I mean, it was 42,000 acres of club land and a lot of deer. And Lloyd was just hunting around his house and everything. He said, how many deer you think I'm going to kill this year? And he was he's the best hunter I ever known. And I said, 4. He said, how many you going to kill? And I said, 12. He said, 4? It hurt his feelings, man. I didn't think enough of him. He was going to kill 4 deer. And I said, well, let me look at it like this. I said, I'm going to hunt a lot more than you are. I'm hunting in a whole lot better place than you are. And I got a lot of experience that you don't have with the bow hunting and stuff. And he said, well, why you say 4? And I said, well, look at it like you say you're going to hunt 15 days. That's a lot of days to bow hunt. I said, half of those days you're not going to see a deer. So that leaves you, say, 8 days to hunt. And they said, if you get 6 shots in 8 days, you're probably going to hit 4 out of the 6. And that'll be how many you kill. You know how many you killed that year? 4. But that was the last year he killed 4. He's killed 20 deer with a bow in one season before. I can't say enough about him.
That's awesome.
What would you say to somebody, kind of going back to the newer hunter, someone that's been only hunting for maybe it's the first season all the way up to maybe 6, 7 seasons they've been hunting? How would you tell somebody to get over that hurdle where maybe they keep having something happen where they're just not being able to execute on opportunities. Maybe they killed a deer or two, but it's like this, they're not being able to replicate that success. What would you tell them to focus on?
Don't expect too much too soon. It takes time to learn. Every time you go hunting, there's a new experience that you learn. And just don't expect too much too soon, and just keep your head in the game and learn and talk to people and watch these podcasts and just work at it. Believe in it. It's something you really want to do. If you really want to do it, you'll do it. That's all I got to say about it. You'll do whatever it takes. That was always my saying, whatever it takes. And you'll do that, and it'll pay off for you. But don't expect too much too soon. It takes time.
For someone getting into bow hunting, and I know you've shot all kinds of stuff. You were showing us earlier in one of the rooms in your home here of all the different bows you have, both some recurves. You have, I think, a longbow or two in there, and then one of your old compounds that you've killed all those bows you've killed a ton of deer with. What advice would you give to bow hunters, especially this day and age where there's so much emphasis on shooting further, having super high-tech gear? Again, looking at, especially like your old bows you killed, I think you said like 80 deer with your old compound. If I was to find that in a yard sale for $5, I'm not paying $5 for it. But that's something you killed 80 deer with, okay?
Yeah, I did.
Just with that one bow. What would you tell somebody about focusing on as a bow hunter now, maybe instead of focus so much on buying the newest and greatest whatever piece of equipment it is?
Well, the internet offers a lot of good information. But one thing is people trying to teach you how to shoot a bow. Compound bows doesn't apply to that much. You got your sight pin and you pull the anchor and you put the sight pin on it once it's sighted in, and you hit what you're aiming at. But a traditional bow is a lot different, And you got a lot. That was my biggest enemy, the internet. When I first got on the internet, going to these bow sites, I found out I wasn't shooting right, and I had been doing pretty good actually. But I wanted to be better. Everybody wants to be better. They're never satisfied. No matter how good you shoot, they're never satisfied. I was one of those, and it messed my shooting up so much. I got where I was trying to aim instead of just look and shoot, and it was my biggest enemy. If somebody wants to shoot a traditional bow, my best advice is don't listen to nobody. Get you somebody to help you get set up with a bow and matched arrows and make sure it's shooting right, good air flight and all that. And then shoot that thing a lot and shoot it what feels good. The only way you can be accurate is repeat every shot exactly the same. Do the same thing on every one of them. I don't care if you anchor here or you don't anchor or whatever. If it feels good and you practice it, that air is going to go there. Bow hunting is a short range game. It's not a long range. It's how close you can get them. You want to be able to see the eyelashes. And it just puts so much nervous on you. The closer they get, the more nervous you get. And you get to shoot that air, and you can see it so easy. You see the whole flight of it. And the closer, the more exciting. Just shoot your way. Don't shoot somebody else's way.
That's some great advice, and something I've always seen, because you see so many people now, just because, the compound bow technology is getting so good, and guys are getting really good at shooting, especially really far distances, practicing 60, 80, 100 yards.
Unbelievable.
And, kind of going back to bow hunting's that game of how close can I get?
Right.
Whether you're using a compound or, traditional equipment as well. What gave you the thrill of bow hunting?
Just air flight, I guess, and it's just simple. I keep things simple. I had a compound bow for a rest. I used a toothbrush head. I cut a brush off of a toothbrush and glued it on that piece of rest they had there and shot it on one bow. Another bow, I had a sweatband from a construction job, and I took and glued it on there on the shelf and everything and shot off it. It's not that difficult. People make a mountain out of a molehill to make them feel better about solving a problem. And, it's just deer, and most of the ones I killed, I've killed 280 deer with a bow, and my average distance is 15 steps. So, it's up close. You don't need to be a Robin Hood or the best possible shooter you can be.
I love that. And it kind of reminds me of one of our past guests, Bobby Worthington. He's a guy who killed a bunch of deer in the 70s, 80s, early 90s with a compound, and then, kind of went back to shooting traditional like he did when he was younger. And he was talking to us. We went scouting with him, and he's like, I want a 20-yard shot or in. It doesn't matter. I don't care. He's like, I don't care what equipment you're using. when I'm showing guys how to hunt funnels, I want you to set up for 20 to 25 yards or in.
Right.
And he's like, when they're that close, and you can put, especially if you're in the compound, you can put all 4 pins on that deer.
He gonna die.
Yeah, he's like, because he made a comment, and I thought it was kind of funny. He's like, when that deer's that close, and you can settle all 4 pins right there on his heart or on his lungs, buck fever is not nearly as important as if he's 35 yards and you're trying to, shoot a gap between pins or really have to think a lot harder about how you're going to place that pin on them.
A lot of people that shoot their deer out 30, 40 yards and stuff like that, and like you say, extreme distances too. They don't know how much it affects you when you get one in there 5, 6 yards, and it's right under you, 15 foot off the ground, and that thing is just almost a plumb bob shot. You can't believe how much pressure that puts on you. Thinking you just want to hurt them end it, you can't stand the drama of it that much. And they missing out on that shooting them long distance. It's just an experience. I mean, like no other. And it's a lot of difference between a real close shot and a long distance shot.
Did you ever have issues with the term that people call buck fever, or just with any deer, like just handling your nerves? And
I had deer fever. I'm not no trophy buck hunter, that's for sure. I'm just a deer hunter, and a yearling will put as much pressure on me as a buck will.
Is there a way, though, you've learned to kind of overcome some of those emotions in that experience?
No. I wish. I've been looking for a way. I get a little anxiety. I'm taking medicine for anxiety. I don't even think that helps.
Warren, I wanted to ask you about this as well. Just the sheer amount of time you've spent in the woods over the years is really impressive. And I'm just really curious to ask about this. Being in the woods, like that passion, I mean, what does it mean to you to be able to go into the woods and deer hunt? Where does that passion come from?
I don't know. I don't know how to explain it. Either you got it or you don't have it, I believe. But I was since a kid. It's a family tradition for me. All my uncles and on both sides of my family, my mother's side and my dad, they were all hunters. They didn't have deer to hunt, but they're small game hunters, and they all had dogs. And I had one old bachelor uncle. His name is Alvin Womack, but he went by Boy Womack. He was an old bachelor and everything. He hunted. He worked in a fire tower. And when it rained, had a lot of dew on the ground. He didn't have to go to work till it dried. He hunted almost every day. He had squirrel dogs, fox dogs, coon dogs, turkey dogs. He had everything, man. It was just unbelievable. When he was, I'm 80 now. He was in his 70s. He was following them dogs and jumping creeks and falling down, tripping on vines and all that. But he just had to be in there. And finally, he sat down one season during the season, and he just got stuck on the rocking chair, until he died. But it's just it's a family tradition for me. I was raised up in it.
That's something I always like to ask guys like yourself about, how you not only, what got you into it, but what keeps you in it as well. Because, I mean, we do run into guys occasionally who get burned out.
Yeah.
And they go too hard, and then they might quit hunting altogether, or maybe they take a couple years off. Have you ever gotten burned out before?
Yeah, I've been going the last 5, 6 years. I've been burning out and slowing down a lot and everything. But I've got some physical problems, heart and this, that, and that, several things. But I don't want to quit. I always said when I got where I couldn't hunt my style of hunting, I wouldn't and be independent from outside help, that I'd quit. I have trouble getting a deer out now. It takes me longer to field quarter them, and my back hurts and my knees go, and so that helps me on passing deer though, because I got where I'm real picky about what I shoot, so I don't have to. But I have a lot of people say just get him on the ground and we'll come to get him for you. I don't bother nobody. I want to be independent. If I can't do it the way I want to do it, there's no use doing it at all. But right now I can still climb, and I can still shoot, and I can still get around a little bit. So as long as I can do that and get in a tree and see deer, whether I shoot them or not, I don't care. I just don't want to quit.
How have you over the years kept deer hunting fun?
Waiting for the season. Just anticipating the season coming. The preseason stuff you got to do and all that. And I can't say the people other than Lloyd, because I hunted mostly solo hunting other than the times we hunted together. So I can't say the camp life and all that. But I don't know, it's just, like I say, something I loved. I had to do it. It's who I am, basically. When anybody sees me, I hadn't seen in a while, you still hunting? You still climbing trees? You know, that's the first thing they asked me when they had to see me in a while.
Well, that's what I was wondering because again, it's been a while since I'll be honest. I've talked to you,
Yeah.
and when we pulled up and you showed us, you got your I can't remember side by side our truck out here, and it's got your stand, your sticks, everything on there. And
It's
you're
ready
like,
to go.
Yeah, you're like still doing it, which it's impressive. Just because you're able to kind of stay focused and stay in the right health to be able to do that at 80 years old, but also shows like your passion for it too. Like you still take it seriously, even though, like you said, like you've been kind of getting burned out or, over the last 5 or 6 years, but you're still going out there and implementing it.
Yeah.
And there was a couple stats that you had written down in one of your journals that I wanted to bring up. One of them was you've documented how many hours you've sat in the stand.
Oh, yeah.
And it was 9,100 and some change hours, 9,100 hours.
Y'all figured out how many days it was?
It's 380 days.
Yeah,
that you've
24-hour days.
24-hour days that you have been in a stand.
Not walking, not like, I went hunting Saturday to know like how long you were sitting in a stand on Saturday equals 380 days of being in a tree stand, which is insane. Okay. Also, another stat you had that I was really interested in, and I want you to tell this one. How many days have you slept in that truck?
It's 5 from being 200 on the one I got now, but that's a 2004 truck. I got it in 2003. I ordered it from the factory where I wanted it.
And then you had a camper shell that you were.
Yeah, I had another truck. I rigged my Bronco up in '85 to sleep in it. I spent some nights in it. Then I got that red truck. I spent over 1,100 nights. I had over 1,100 marks on the inside of the camper hull on that truck. And then I got another truck, and I had with a camper hull, and I had probably 80 nights on it, something like that. And this one out here, like it's got 195 or something like that on it. But I had slept in that in a few years. My wife told me that I've had my times and now it's her time, and she wants me home every night. So I don't hunt out of state anymore, and I just fortunate to have a place I can hunt in my backyard, and then about 20 miles up the road, something like that. So I'm good with that.
But 1,100 nights in one truck.
That's crazy.
My wife hates for me to tell people that. That's 3 years that I wasn't with her,
Yeah. I mean, that's insane. Now, I want to get some relationship advice for you. Okay, from you. Now, I'm not married. Andrew is though, and I'm sure quite a bit of the audience is married or in some kind of relationship. First off, how long have you been married, Mr.
62 years.
Okay, wow. 62 years. How have you been able to manage that relationship with her even during these deer seasons when you would be hunting so much?
Easy, yes, ma'am. That's all you gotta say, yes, ma'am.
No, there's got to be more to it than just yes, man. Now, listen, I don't know. Maybe she's a real easygoing woman, but all my experiences with some other one, it ain't been just like that. So
her daddy really raised her right for me coming up and everything. When she was in the 3rd grade, her and her older sister used to take turns getting up and getting him off to work, and she would get up as a 3rd grader, I guess. She'd go make coffee, bring that coffee into him in the bed, and wake him up with a cup of coffee. And while he's getting up, getting ready, she goes in there and fixes his breakfast. Comes out and eats bacon and eggs and toast or whatever. While he's doing that, she's fixing his lunch. And then when she gets his lunch ready, she waits at the door, and he goes out the door with his lunch, and she goes up back in the bed waiting to go to school. She started doing that in the 3rd grade, alternating with her older sister. So she was raised to take care of a man, that's for sure. And she's taking care of me really good.
She took care of us today. She made an awesome lunch. I mean, just so nice, man.
She's a really good partner, that's for sure.
Absolutely. Well, you're blessed. Gosh, man.
Jacob's wondering where he can find one like that.
She's been one of my biggest supporters for sure.
You have to, and that's something we've talked about with some past guests, is like how important it is for you to have a great relationship with your spouse if you truly are going to try to hunt a good bit if you have enough time to be able to do so. How was it? How many children do y'all have?
3.
How was it growing up with, or like raising them and also doing all the hunting as well? Did you integrate them a lot into the hunting and take them with you, or was it still more solo?
A little bit. I had 2 boys and a girl, and the girl's a baby. And my oldest son, he was climbing with spurs when he's 13 years old. When he's 15 years old, he could bench press 300 pounds. So, he's much man. And when he got married, he started having kids, and he was all for his kids, and unlike I was. He was all for his kids, and one boy was an athlete, and the other boy was a bull rider, and the other one was a hunter. He liked to hunt and everything, so he supported them and everything. Now he's 57 years old now, and he's been back hunting. This is his third year back hunting again. He's starting back. They all gone and gone, and with kids and stuff now. So, but my second son, the other place we had trees like this in the back too, and he was going to hunt with me. Well, both of them was going to hunt with me, and I had a stand I put up, and then I pulled another stand up and set it by me, and then Clint, he was about 6 years old, something like that. I put a rope around his waist, and I started pulling him up hand over hand. After I climbed up with my spurs, I pulled him up like that, and he dropped the rope and he flipped upside down. And his mama was standing there watching. She like to die, but he started laughing about it. He thought it was funny, and I pulled him on up and got him up. And but that's what I do. I take them hunting. I was in that club at I ain't gonna say the name of it. It's up in North Louisiana, North Central Louisiana. And I was in that club, and I brought them up there during the Thanksgiving and Christmas holidays. And this way I had 3 stands, and they wasn't climbing yet. So I'd go put one stand up, climb down. They'd get on my back. I'd climb back up. They'd climb off my back and stand and pull the gun up. And I'd take the other one. I'd climb up the tree, put a stand, climb down, get on my back, climb up, get off, climb down, give me the gun, and then I'd go climb a tree and hunt. You know, but the second boy, he's more into coon hunting than he was deer hunting. He had a real good coon dog, but Kelly, he's killed some deer with a bow and gun and stuff. But Clint had to kill as many as he has. But I was selfish. I didn't want nothing taking my hunting time away. Even on jobs, when it closer got to deer season, I was being more and more careful all the time. I didn't hardly do anything. I didn't want to get hurt and miss some hunting season.
Yeah, and with your job too, I mean, you would take the entire hunting season off. Can you talk about, you were kind of telling us inside about how that kind of started. You take a Friday and do a long weekend, and then eventually you set yourself up where you could take as much time as you wanted, right?
That's right. You know, both seasons, it was only deer season, only 4 months. You know, you got to get as much of it as you can. But I would hunt 4 days and come home and put up meat and clean my equipment up and wash clothes and all that, and then I'd go another 4 days.
Mm-hmm.
And then come back and do the same thing, repeat, rinse and repeat.
Quick, how far away would you typically hunt from the house too, by the way?
I hunted 13 different states, so, you know, just wherever I had to go.
Mm-hmm. I meant to ask you this earlier, but what would you say is kind of like your bread and butter? Were you mostly like a river bottom hunter? Where you're big flat,
hardwood flat bottoms,
big like cuckleberry thickets and stuff like that?
They had one place I hunted that had a lot of cuckleberry thickets, but most places didn't have it. But I was always interested in waterways, creeks and drainages and stuff like that. I would hit the ground running one morning, and I'd go a mile up a creek or drain looking for feed trees, and then jump over and take a mile back, and then I'd go to another drainage and walk one side and come back on the other. I might find 5 places to hunt, you know, or I might not find any. Just that was ready.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we get questions about that from time to time from our listeners, and they'll talk about some of these areas in Mississippi or Louisiana where it's, you know, a big flat expanse. Maybe there's a lot of water in there, and they're like, how do I narrow down deer on this 30,000 acres that's, you know, half water, it's all swampy and everything? And I don't know what to tell them because I don't hunt that kind of stuff. I'm curious on what your thoughts would be. I think I know what you're going to say, but I'm going to ask you anyways.
You know, I got certain areas I like to hunt with the topographical and some people kill deer in palmetto areas where they got all that palmetto. I don't like that. It's too noisy to try to hunt, and everything looks the same. There's no breaks. Well, you got breaks in there and stuff, but I don't do palmetto hunting. I don't do swamp hunting where you got to hunt out of boats and stuff like that. The canoes, kayaks, I don't want anything to do with that. I like big open hardwood flats and it's SMZs too. I'm really a fan of SMZs. Get them cutovers, and they cut on a straight line, and all them curves, they leave all the oaks in there. And those deer, they bedding in that cutover, and they don't have to travel. They lay down 30 yards from the feed tree, you know, or 50 or something. And during the middle of the day, they want an acorn or something. They just get up and ease on out, step out and eat some acorn, and step back in.
You're getting Jacob excited with that.
That's how my opening day spot is setting up.
Yep.
Went in there, and again, this episode will come out in a little bit, but tons of big sign right there next to that clear cut on that Hardwood Creek drainage, kind of steeper hillside going up. Big white oaks right there that are loaded, and some were starting to drop a little early. So that's really interesting. Again, that's kind of the environment you like to hunt. Again, those big bottoms, working those creek systems, and so on. What I want to get your take on this. What advice would you tell to somebody when it comes to them learning how to hunt hot sign? Specifically, we can use example of feed sign, or maybe like travel like a flow area where you're looking at trail systems and everything going through an area. How would you dictate exactly what is the hottest thing possible that you're going to set up on? And then did you ever go into hunts that you just never found exactly what you're looking for, and you're not going to waste your time getting in a tree?
Absolutely. I went to a big national wildlife refuge. I met Lloyd up there. We walked for 8 hours and didn't find anything I wanted to hunt. I drove 4.5 hours back home. I wouldn't want to waste my time climbing when I didn't have something I could expect to see deer. When I climb, I don't hope to see a deer. Now, this is back in the prime days, too. When I climb, I expected to see a deer. Didn't always happen, but hunts are too valuable. You only got so many hunts you can make during the season. Each one of them is very important. I don't want to burn a hunt. So I'd rather just keep looking for something I know I can have some success on instead of hunting something that I just hope something comes in.
Now, how would you explain that to somebody who's trying to get to that point in learning exactly what that hot sign is in order for them to have success and have confidence they're going to see deer versus wasting a sit?
I think they got to analyze what they're doing and each time after and think about what they should have done or could have done different, and remember that and try to do something different if it didn't work out. If it did work out, do it again. Just keep doing it. Everybody's got to find their own style, and some people are just absolutely more successful than others. I've known guys that did everything right, just never could kill a deer. I don't know what the difference it is.
Let me ask, since you've been bow hunting for so long and you're so well connected in the bow hunting community with other like-minded guys of different ages, who are some guys who are out there who you highly respect as bow hunters, maybe in the Deep South, that you really like what they do?
Oh, well, definitely Lloyd Foreman and Charles Lee Buller lives over here. Awesome. Chris Spikes, and you pin me up having to think of these names. Robert Carter. There's a lot of guys out there really good, know what they're doing. I mean, everybody wants to be as good as they can be. It's just some people wind up being, it's like football players or baseball players. Everybody plays, but some of them are really good and some of them are not so good. It's just the way it is.
Now, the reason why I asked that, because I want to follow up with this question. What is there any commonality between all those guys that you mentioned and maybe yourself of why you think they're so successful?
Desire. They want it. And they're ready to do whatever it takes to do it. They're focused.
I like that.
How did that phrase, by the way, come about? I think you told us a story earlier, but the phrase "whatever it takes," how that kind of started to become your motto. What's the story behind that?
I was hunting with my buddy Carol Horn and everything, and making 4-day hunts up there, coming home, and he lived over in Moss Point, Mississippi, and it's a big club, 42,000 acre club. A lot of room to roam and everything. And he'd come to my camp. We had camp. Both of us had camps, but we were about 1.5 miles apart. He come down to camp and said, "Well, what you gonna do today?" And I said, "I don't know, but whatever it takes, I'm gonna do it." And he come out with a 20 club patch, and he put that on there, whatever it takes and everything. But that was amazing. And I did. I tried to do whatever it takes, what I had to do to put a deer on him. I was willing to do it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think you mentioned earlier as well the beginning of you starting to pack your deer out. It really opened up a lot of doors for you because now you were able to get them out of the woods easier if you quartered them up in the woods, and that opened up a lot of new territory for you.
Oh, man. I didn't want to hunt a place I had to eat the deer to bring him out,
Just start a fire and eat them here.
Yeah, I mean, really, that's the truth. And Carol Horn, he'd hunted out west a lot. He lived out west and hunted. He'd hiked in and packed out stuff, take him a couple of days to pack out or whatever. And we was hunting together, and I had a big flood come in, and we had flood stays. We was having to hunt out of boats and stuff, and all the deer on the ridges. And he said, "We got to field quarter these things." So he give me. I said, "What do you mean field quarter?" I had tried one time, and I made a mess of it. He said, "Well, that's the way we're gonna do it," and we did. We killed a bunch of deer during that water was up. Deer were all concentrated and stuff. The hardest pack I ever had was my first one. We went in. He had the backpack and all that. He was experienced. I had never done that before, except for that one failed operation. And I had my old Navy sea bag, them long bags with a strap on like that. No, not two strap, one strap. And that's all I had at the camp. And so I brought it with me, and I killed 2 deer that evening. I quartered them up, put them in that bag, and it was we was walking through a crop field. It was bared ground, but it was uneven and rough and all that. And I tried packing that thing. I tried dragging it. It'd like to kill me to get that thing back to the boat. It was about a half a mile deal. So when I got home, I went straight and bought me an Alice pack. Went straight to the Army surplus store and bought me an Alice pack. And I was ready to go then.
So I know you're probably going to say that's an important skill set, or really skill that someone needs to learn if they're going to try to do this and become a more effective hunter, especially if you're hunting public land or bigger landscapes where you can't get a truck in there and you don't want to drag them. Because me and Andrew, we try to quarter deer up and pack deer out as much as we can.
Yeah.
What other skill sets do you think are important for people to pay attention to and learn, especially to become a better woodsman, but also a better bow hunter?
Just continue to educate yourself, learn as much as they can about it, talk to experienced people, and try to get some tips from them and something like that. Just keep it on your mind all the time.
Warren, we greatly appreciate you letting us come to the house and do this podcast with you, kind of sit down and give us a crash course, not on your life, but your experiences and everything that's kind of got you to this point. And again, there's a lot of guys out there that already know about you and highly respect you just like us, and there's going to be quite a few people that this is the first time hearing about you and seeing you and listening to you, so I hope they enjoyed it as well. So I greatly appreciate you letting us come over here and doing this.
Well, I really enjoyed having y'all here, and I forgot to tell you, don't expect too much and you won't be disappointed, so I hope it turns out good for y'all.
I think it turned out really good. Is there any last thing you'd like to say, leave the listeners with or anything like that?
Be safe and use your safety equipment and spread the word.
Spread the word.
Absolutely.
I love it.
Perfect. Well, Warren, thank you again. Listeners and viewers out there, appreciate y'all watching and listening to this podcast. If you enjoyed it, please share it with some friends and buddies. And guys, we'll catch you back here on the next episode from the Southern Outdoorsman Podcast. And remember, guys, y'all stay Southern.